Let's walk down a path. Cervical vertebra. This is the day that we transition between the old and the new. What can the cervical vertebra do in terms of movement capabilities? If we want to break it down, how many different planes can the cervical vertebra move in? Let's break it down. So here's nothing but the best props. So here's our cervical, right? It could bend like this. Sagittal. Can it go side to side? So that's frontal. And it can twist, right? So it can move in 3 planes. How many different motions per plane? That's like saying how many different ways can you travel on a road? 2 different ways, right? So it can move in 3 planes, 2 motions per plane. So how many motions are we going to have to account for? Awesome. Awesome. Let's talk about what those motions are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Somebody give me one. Flexion. Love it. More in the field, right? Also forgive the misspellings. As you know by now, I have dyslexia. Doing my best. What's the opposite of flexion? Extension. Awesome. This is what always drives me crazy. Is it the T or the S? Doesn't matter. 310 review. What was the side to side? Outstanding. And how do we communicate the difference between bending to the right and bending to the left? Literally by saying right and left, right? So we have right, lateral, cervical, bending, and left, lateral, cervical. And now, technically, we should, if I'm not going to be a hypocrite, I should add cervical flexion, cervical, because we should always communicate which joints we're talking about, especially there might be some other stuff involved, and we have a lot of things that can flex and can extend. So right elbow, left knee, you remember from 310. Okay. What plane, listen to my question, what plane are we missing? Transverse. Okay. So in 310, I used a term like right and left can only mean something in the frontal and transverse plane. You can't do a sagittal roll to the right, to the left, right? Rolling forward, rolling back. But I could do a cartwheel to my right, or I could do a cartwheel to my left, or I could spin to my right, and I could spin to my left. Okay. So what were our transverse motions called? When you look to the right, or look to the right, transverse cervical rotation and left transverse cervical rotation. Gotta do some refreshers, guys, right? Transverse cervical left. Why does the transverse plane get rotation after its name and the others don't? That was a 310 conversation. So in 310, we talked about the difference between pure rotation and general motion. So like the tires are spinning with pure spin. So when you bend your head to the left or to the right, the mass of the head is going down and up, forward and down and up. In other words, there's linear work. There's some combinational stuff happening. But when you look to the right and your left, that's more like spinning a wheel or spinning a basketball. So when we have things like internal and external rotation, that's for joint motions that are more pure in their rotation. Here's a practical way of saying it. If I had 50-pound dumbbells in my arms, frontal plane, probably not going to happen. Because in addition to the spin, I got to raise it up. Sagittal plane, probably not going to happen for the old man. But I could knock it out, transverse plane, all day long. Does that kind of make sense? Abduction, flexion, internal and external rotation. Okay. So just as a reminder, when we see the rotation at the end of things, it's more pure spin. Okay. All right. These are our motions. How many agonistic groups are we going to have at the cervical vertebra? In other words, how many groups of muscles, teams, are we going to have? There's as many agonistic groups as there are. See, from 310, there's as many groups, there's as many teams, there's as many agonistic teams as there are joint motions. Think about it. You have to have puppet strings to pull in every direction of joint motion, right? So if we have the motion of cervical flexion, what are we going to call the group of muscles that pull in the direction of cervical flexion? Amen. Absolutely. Cervical flexors, a group of muscles that pull in the direction of cervical flexion. I'm going to teach you who those muscles are starting on Friday and why they are in that team. Finish it off. What do we call the group of muscles that pull in the direction of cervical extension? Cervical extensors, rocket science. Now, Campbell, why don't we call them bulls, saints, rockets? Why don't we give the teams a name? Well, we could. And I also understand why to some people this would be confusing. Don't think of it as confusing. Think of it as a blessing. Because if we communicate agonist with direction of pull in the name, it makes life a heck of a lot easier for us to figure out who we need because why we need it. If I called the cervical flexors Bobby and I called the cervical extensors Sally, it's really hard to figure out, oh, I need Bobby because of why. But if I have an external force trying to extend my neck, it's a lot easier for me to say, oh, well, I must need muscles that are trying to flex my neck. And I'm going to call those my flexion pullers or my flexors. So there's the reason is so that we can translate both into motion. Literal motion, muscles that pull in a direction of motion. Okay, so finish it off. Have right lateral cervical benders, left lateral cervical benders, right transverse cervical rotators, left transverse cervical rotators. The last part that we're going to work on and develop before you first test is I'm going to teach you these muscles. I'm going to teach you why they are on the teams that they're in. I'm going to teach you how they work. I'm going to teach you how to stretch them. I'm going to teach you how to see all the cool things. But if all I did was say right and left sternocleidomastoids, what do they do? It's when you memorize, when I was studying for my certification, it said the right and left sternocleidomastoids do flexion. We've had this conversation about why we can't necessarily do that, because not always. Sometimes they do extension through eccentrics, flexion through concentrics, and no motion at all through isometrics. But what do those muscles do all the time? They're flexion pullers because of how they cross the cervical. Let me explain that. So that's why we always, guys, this is the most important step right here in all of biomechanics, therapy, is understanding agonist because of pull and then applying the muscles after. Because this and this are in the same language. Okay. All right. Cervical flexors. Sensors, right laterals, left laterals, right transverse, left transverse. Here we go. Take your right hand. Repeat after me. Push on your right head. So you are pushing your head, trying to make it go to your left. Identify what agonist we need at the cervical vertebra to prevent that from happening. So another way to look at it is, my right hand is trying to make my head bend to the left. I need muscles that are trying to make my head bend to the right. Does that make sense? Who would I need? Right laterals. I need right lateral cervical benders. Right lateral cervical bending pullers. And I know that because I can see the force is trying to bend me to the left. That's why it's so important to see agonists based off of pull. Starting Friday and next week, I'm going to teach you who those muscles are. I'm going to teach you about the right sternocleidomastoid and the left erector spinae. We're going to go into the spinalis, the iliocastalis, the longissimus. But all of those names are just blah if you don't know what they do. What does Frederick do for a living? I don't know. Frederick could be anything. He could be a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer. What does Samantha do for a living? I don't know. Samantha could do anything. What does the iliocastalis do? I don't know. How does it pull? See what I'm getting at? So 310 should have taught you, oh, I need right lateral cervical benders. Now all we have to do is say, who are those muscles that pull it? Yes? Other side, we're going to go all four. Push on your left side, trying to bend your head to the right. You can feel muscles tighten up on your left side. True? You feel those kick on. You're trying to make your head do this. I need muscles that are trying to make my head do that. We have a name for that group, the left lateral cervical bend. Left lateral pullers are preventing my head from right laterally bending. I'm going to teach you who those muscles are, and I'm going to teach you why they're in that group. You push your head to the back, pushing in the front of your head, but trying to make your head go to the back. Do I need flexors or extensors? You can feel you need flexion pullers because the force is trying to extend you. I'm going to teach you who those muscles are. Push your head from the back, trying to flex me. I need extension pullers. I'm pushing on the front part of my face, trying to make myself look to the left. I need muscles that are trying to make me look to the right. I'm going to teach you those muscles are. But it's a heck of a lot easier to do it this way than for me to say, okay, guys, what muscles am I using to prevent motion at my cervical vertebra? And you all of a sudden being able to say left sternocleidomastoid and right erector spinae. That's tough. But if we break it down, if we have a process and we say, okay, gravity, or in this case, my hand is trying to make me look to the left. I don't need muscles that are pulling to the left. I need muscles that are pulling to the right. I'm going to call those right transverse cervical rotation pullers, or right transverse cervical rotators. Who pulls that way? Left sternocleidomastoid, right erector spine. Process. There's a reason so many people play fast and loose with muscles and motion and physics, because they don't have a process. You know, you hear it a lot, and it's not to discredit them. It just gets in our bad verbiage. You know, TV announcers and the running back is explosive and it's power, fast. And like they're using all these words. We need process. We need a system so that we're all on the same page, so that there's no miscommunication in therapy, in treatment, in emergencies. Amputate right leg. Right. What if, same concept, what if we wanted to stretch left lateral cervical benders? This is 310 review. What if we wanted to stretch? Muscles can only do what? Starts with a P. Pull. Guys, muscles can only pull. If muscles can pull and push, we would only need half the muscles in the body. Muscles can only pull. So because muscles can only pull, that creates a very unique property of elasticity and tension influencers. What I mean by that is if the TheraBand is trying to pull my hands closer together, if my hands actually move in the direction of pull, this TheraBand is going to get short. And if my hands move in the opposite direction of the TheraBand's pull, TheraBand's going to get longer. Kind of common sense, right? So if I'm trying to stretch left lateral pulling muscles, if I actually bend my neck to the left, these muscles are going to get shorter. If I want to stretch things that pull to my left in the frontal plane, I actually need to bend to the right. And I want you to do that right now, and you'll feel it. Bend your right ear to your right shoulder, and you're going to feel the stretch on the left side of your muscle, the left side of your neck. So we learned that in 310, that for stretching or lengthening, whatever your position is, you're shortening muscles that pull that way, and you'd be lengthening muscles that pull the other way. As I flex my wrist, I stretch extension pullers. As I extend my wrist, I stretch flexion pullers. So one of the things we're going to develop when we get into these specific muscles is specific stretches. Think of it like this. If you are in a clinic and a patient has a contracture, which is just a tightening of a certain muscle, you know, we're used to stretching hamstrings, stretching quads. But what if they need to stretch their left sternocleidomastoid muscle? I'm going to teach you how to make that very easy. Because the first thing we're going to do is say, how does that muscle pull? What teams is it on? What groups is it on? I'm going to teach you how the left sternocleidomastoid is a cervical flexor. So right away, I want to make sure I extend if I want to lengthen it in the sagittal plane. The left sternocleidomastoid is a left lateral bending puller. I want to make sure I bend to the right if I want to stretch it in the frontal plane. And it's going to get a little tough, but that's why we practice. The left sternocleidomastoid is actually a right transverse puller. It's like if you grabbed my left ear and pulled it forward, you'd actually make me want to look to the right. So if it's pulling right transverse, I actually want to look to my left if I want to stretch it in the transverse plane. I'm going to teach you. We're going to practice. We're going to practice. But I'm telling you, this stuff will be useful. I get emails and text messages all time from former students. They're like, Dr. Campbell, I'm here in PT school and I'm teaching my peers about how muscles work. And the reason is because though the other students were only taught bicep does flexion. So we need to translate things. A specific muscle has function, has purpose, has pull. You name any muscle. What does the brachialis do? It's an elbow flexor. I know because that's how it pulls. How would I stretch it? I want to make sure my elbow's extended. How would it work? How would I make it work isometrically? Well, if it's a flexion puller, I need an external force that's trying to extend me. True? Guys, you're going to be doing manual muscle tests on people. It should make sense that this is going to be a normal part of your life. Testing the strength of certain muscles because you know how they pull, thus you know how to apply your manual resistance against it. Do a manual muscle test for the palmaris longus. All right, that's a fun word. What does it do? I'm going to teach you. The palmaris longus is a wrist flexor. Well, if it's a wrist flexion puller, I need to say, don't let me push your hand down. I'm going to create an extension push so that I'm recruiting flexion pullers. And that's one of the muscles. Yes? No? Maybe so? Yeah. So what I would like to do now, Grace and I are going to float around, and I would love for us to do, like, think of it as a lab day. I'm going to call out agonistic groups throughout the body. And I would like for you guys, whether it's in small groups, 1 or 2 people, 2 or 3, or by yourself. You do this by myself. I'm going to say, how would you work? And we're going to start off isometric. We're going to start the easiest ones, isometric, right? Those muscles are working to prevent motion. But I'm going to say, okay, guys, activate the left shoulder abductors with isometric contraction. So I have a group of muscles that pull in the direction of abduction. So I would need an external force, whether it's gravity or someone else's push or your push, to want to try to adduct my shoulder so that my abduction pullers would be turned on above resting tone. Does that make sense? And once we get the hang of this, guys, the last part of this class, all the specific muscles are going to be easy. Because now it's just, well, who are the things that pull that way? Does that make sense? Once you get the agonistic groups down and that process down, feed me. I've just got to tell you who's in those groups. Right? All right. Let's get into, again, group. I'd like for everybody to please stand up. I know you don't like it, but I promise you it's going to help you. All right. I want you to do a manual muscle test to activate your elbow flexors through isometric contraction. What would you have to do to yourself or to your partner or to your neighbor to activate? Now, why is this important? Because you can feel it. If we do these things, you're like, oh yeah, I see how these things turn on, and I can see how they're preventing motion by pulling. That's what, to me, this is about. It's about us being able to feel what's happening while I'm here babbling to you, okay? So first one, super easy. How would you activate your elbow flexion pullers? We call them elbow flexors through isometrics. What do we need the external force to try to do to our elbows? Extend us. We could do that a ton of different ways. We could do it against the table. We could do it against ourselves. A partner could try to push down. Heck, we could do it with gravity. Give that a try. Use your other hand or your partner to push in a direction of extension so that you can feel the muscles that are pulling in a direction of flexion. Do that right now, please, because I want you to be able to feel what I'm trying to tell you. All day. Grace. Yeah. All right, some of you are just showing off. Grace, watch them. Okay, y'all watch this. Stand to the side. To show you what I'm talking about, it doesn't really work with the elbows. Arms out. You have any shoulder problems? Okay, get ready. Don't let me push you down. Don't let me push you down. I'm trying to extend her shoulders, right? So she needs muscles that are trying to. Yeah, absolutely. Don't let me push you up. Don't let me push you up. Don't let me push you. Like you could literally see it. Let's go this way. Do not let me push this hand across. Don't let me push this hand across. Like you could literally see, ooh, external's trying to do this. I need muscles that are pulling this way. And we have names for those. Here, she'd be using her horizontal shoulder adduction pullers. I'm going to teach you who those muscles are. When I was trying to push her down, she needed flexion pullers. I'm going to teach you who those muscles are. But we have to see why they're working based off a direction of pull so that we can translate it into the same language. Good? All right. Here's a trick question. It's not really tricky. What if we did? I saw someone doing this. I've actually asked this question on the test. Here's what I want you to do. Left hand over right hand. Okay? Push both hands against each other like you're trying to squish silly putty. And then identify, once again, left over right. Identify the agonist at your left elbow and the agonist at your right elbow. Because they may not be the same agonist. Process, guys. Separate questions. Analyze motion joint by joint. Analyze agonist joint by joint. Good. What is the right hand trying to do to your left? And what is the left hand trying to do to your right? Two separate questions. All right, guys. Got to move because I want to try to get to as many. It's a catch-22. I want to give you time, but I also want to give you practice. My right hand is trying to flex my left elbow. Are we cool with that?
Yes.
I don't need flexion pullers on my left side because I already have something trying to flex me. I need extensors on my left side. Does that make sense? And so now all I got to do is teach you who those muscles are. And spoiler alert, it's more than just your tricep. So if you don't know all the main ones and someone's like, oh, you got a strained taniaconeus muscle, what does that do? How does it pull? So left elbow extensors, I see why I need them because I just basically ask myself, why do I need them? My left hand is trying to extend my right elbow. Does that make sense? I don't need extension pullers. I need flexion pullers. Right elbow flexors, left elbow extensors. Now, same question. Let's incorporate some motion so that we can practice our contractions. Okay? Same scenario. And I lower my hands down. I'm constantly contracting. I'm pushing, but I'm lowering my hands down so that I cause motion at the elbows. I need, now it went from isometric to something else, either concentric or eccentric. That's what I want you to have the conversation. Which one did concentric? Which one did eccentric? Did both do eccentric? Did both do concentric? And that's the process of 310. Agonists, I know who's working because I see why they're working. with specific motions show you the contraction. A, B, C. Go. All right, guys, got to move. Right elbow flexors. True? When we were doing isometrics, right elbow flexors. My motion when I went down was right elbow extension. Flexors do extension through eccentrics. Well done. We don't assume. My left elbow, I was using extensors. Extensors do extension through. That's how you do it. Process. We don't guess. We're going to be able to solve for contractions. Just takes practice. All right, next scenario, Grace. The blessing. So you've never heard that before from national anthem. Okay, guys, here's our next question. Elbow flexed at 90 degrees. Okay. I am going to, let's see what I'm going to do. I'm going to push on the outside of her hand. Don't let me push you in. Don't let me push you in. Don't let me push you in. Okay. So this is a shoulder rotation question. The external force is coming from the outside and trying to push her right hand in, thus trying to make her shoulder rotate. Question number one. What would be her agonist to hold this position, right? To prevent motion. Something's trying to make her shoulder do this. She needs muscles that are trying to make her shoulder do something else. After we get the isometrics, which is the easiest one, right? Now let's do some motion. Don't let me push you in. Don't let me push you in. Now slowly go in, slowly resist. Okay, great. We should be able to identify that contraction. Push against me, go up. We should be able to identify that contraction. Same muscles. Same agonist because the external force was the same. So how can the same muscles be responsible for two different motions, different contractions? Guys, that's the secret sauce. Okay? Go. Feel free to float around. You have to have an external force, guys. And that could be you. You could supply your external force. But you have to have an external force to really see what's happening. So if you're going to supply your own external force, just have your left hand push your right hand in. Guys, we have to supply that external force, okay? Because if all you're doing is this, that's a whole new set of rules. We have to have an external force so that the agonist stays consistent. Okay? All right. Process. External force is trying to do what to my shoulder, my right shoulder? Internally rotate. Awesome. Well, if the exercise is trying to internally rotate me, I don't need muscles that are also trying to internally rotate me. That's how I do it. I do elimination. I don't need internal rotation pullers. I need external rotation pullers or lateral rotation pullers. Guys, I'm going to teach you who those muscles are, and I'm going to teach you why they're in that group. It's coming. Those lateral rotators are working isometrically, preventing motion that I don't want. However, if I see external rotation while my external rotators are on, that is only because of concentric contraction. And if I see internal rotation while my external rotators are on, that can only be through outstanding. Is all this coming back? All right, next question. Next question. All right, let's do something with the lower extremity, okay? So let's do hips. We're going to do left hip, and I want you to bring it up. Hold it for a few seconds so that we make sure we have like an isometric part, and then lower it back down. Okay? We should be able to identify agonist, and then with the subsequent motion, be able to solve for contraction. Okay? Give it some thought. Talk with your group. Or do what I do. Talk with the voices in my head. Coming back quick, huh? Coming back quick. Go. Is there anything trying to make my leg come up off the ground? No. I have to remember, muscles can only pull. I can't use muscles to push my leg up. And as soon as my foot leaves the ground, gravity's trying to extend me, right? So I need hip flexors. And the motion I observe is flexion. So flexion pullers are going to do flexion through concentrics. All I have to do is tell you who are those flexion pullers. And we're going to get into iliopsoas and sartorius and rectus femoris and pectineus. There's different members of this team. But if all I did was just throw out random Latin names of muscles, it makes it so much easier when we can compartmentalize them based off a pull. I pulled a hip flexor. Ironically enough, if you pulled a hip flexor, it was while your hip was extending. Why is that? Eccentrics. That's when the rope pops. That's when the rope frays. That's when it's being pulled apart. So, hip flexors, concentric for the flexion, isometric to hold this position when something's trying to extend you. And through same muscles, but through eccentrics to allow the extension. Flexors do extension through eccentrics. Next one. Pivot about your left hip. So in the first one, we raised the left hip up. There's a reason I'm giving you this one, because I think I teased about it last week. So I want you to spread out if you have to, but let's say you dropped your keys or your ID, and you went to pick it up. We call this like a golf lift, like to pick up a golf ball. the whole. So keep that right leg straight. It's kind of like a counter movement. It's like you're a teeter-totter. Okay? And so you're still going to have flexion and extension, but we don't assume. I'm going to have left hip flexion on my way down, and I'm going to have left hip extension on the way up. But because we don't assume, we just have to ask ourselves, whoa, what is gravity trying to do to us so that I can see what muscles I need? Once I identify the muscles that I need based off of their pull, then I can say, what was my motion? What was my contraction? Go. Pivot about your left foot, left hip to pick something up off the ground. It's all fantastic. Anybody see what Shohei Ohtani did last night? It's a 99-mile-an-hour inside fastball. Yes. Sweet off. That was like 120. I wouldn't have bet that he'd have hit that pitch, but I'm sure he would have. Well, inside Shohei Ohtani betting better. All right, guys, here we go. Can you guys, I'm hoping this example can also see how it's going to make you better personal trainers, better therapists, because we don't assume, y'all probably have done this exercise before. But what is gravity trying to do? I have more stuff on this side of the teeter-totter than back here, right? Wouldn't gravity, if I just relaxed all my hip muscles, wouldn't gravity make me want to flex? So the last thing I need is flexion pullers. If I use flexion pullers, bye-bye, tumble forward. I need left hip extensors because I know I need them because gravity's trying to flex me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. Left hip extensors are going to allow my left hip flexion through Kobe. That's a phrase we used to use back in the day. Meaning you got it, you hit the shot, you got it right. Although back in my day it was Jordan, but RIP, I started using Kobe. Do I need different muscles to come back up?
Yes.
One of those is correct. Gravity is still trying to flex me. So I still need extensors. Extensors are going to let me flex through eccentrics, and then those same muscles are going to make me extend through concentrics. I'm going to teach you who the left hip extensors are. I'm going to teach you about the gluteus maximus. I know you guys know about that. I'm going to teach you about the semimembranosus, the semitendinosus, and the biceps, more specifically the long head. But if all I did was just go right into those things, they don't have substance. They don't have meaning. So let's talk about the meaning. Let's make sure we get the meaning down, and then I can introduce you to the members of the band, the members of the team. And I'm going to show you why they're extension pullers. I'm going to show you why they're flexion pullers. We're going to use these terms in 310 like axes. And I'm going to teach you how, well, if I'm a flexion puller, I kind of have to cross the hip anterior to the bilateral axis. And if I'm an extension puller, I kind of have to cross the hip posterior to the bilateral axis. If you guys want to get a head start, because on Friday you're going to start off a lecture on the specific muscles of the cervical vertebra. Cervical, Grace, I don't mean to speak for you, but cervical wasn't too bad, right? Because to start off with, we're going to keep it simple. But it gets more, it gets more complicated. So keep up, baby steps, good bites of the apple. You're all good? All right, guys. Have a good one. See you Friday.